And welcome. I'm Faru Garamani, Vice President for Research and Innovation at New Jersey Edge, a regional research and education network based in New Jersey. As part of this, the Edge NSF Campus Cyber Infrastructure Regional Connectivity Award, we are pleased to partner with Globus for the Research Data Management series and are grateful for the support from Globus and especially from the National Science Foundation. Today's session is titled Globus for Modern Research Data Management Challenges. We are pleased to have Greg Nawrocki, Director of Customer Engagement at Globus, as the presenter. Greg is responsible for promoting user adoption of Globus. His experience includes building controls and diagnostics for high energy physics experiments, software development in the television and consumer products industry, working with Globus Toolkit in the early days of grid computing and as the technical lead for a data analytics company he co-founded. Greg holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Michigan State University and a Master of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology. He enjoys bridging the gap between science and technology and the marketing and business development worlds. We welcome Greg.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just go ahead and jump right in and get started. I'll give you a good intro to Globus today. I have no problem being interrupted with questions. Susan's also going to monitor the chat. I won't be doing that because I can't do two things at once. Yeah, hopefully we can just kind of make this go smoothly. I'm going to switch between, I'm sharing my screen because I'm going to switch between slides and demos because, you know, live demos, right? What could go wrong? Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So Globus, we're a not-for-profit service developed and operated by the University of Chicago. We are the University of Chicago. I am a University of Chicago employee. We operate Globus like a small not-for-profit business. And our mission, and I promise one of two slides I'll read verbatim, our mission is to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of researchers engaged in data-driven science and scholarship through sustainable software. So the key here is sustainability, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means to us and how we did that. So our team at Globus, we're comprised of professional software developers, business operators, academics. We've got a branch of Globus called Globus Labs that is actually in the University of Chicago, run by Kyle Chard, who has graduate students, and it's a very academic centered arm of Globus. So we've got the academic side, and then we've got kind of the business side and the running a large scale organization like Globus. So wide range of experience. So we developed this freemium sustainability model. And what that means is we've got some basic capabilities that everybody is able to use. And I'll talk a little bit as I do demos and talk a little bit about Globus. I'll talk about what's free and what's subscription-based. And it's free to anybody engaged in there for not-for-profit research. So any academics out there, certainly welcome to use Globus. Subscriptions kind of unlock some enhanced features of those endpoints, those collections, and I'll discuss what those are as we go on. And it enables some what we call the premium features, right? And our subscription model, we scale it. It's based on fairness and equity. So the smaller institutions pay less than the larger institutions, yet they're all able to play on kind of one level playing field. So a lot of our development originally was funded by NSF grants, DOE grants, and that's all fine and well. And we even have some grants till this day. The problem is, as we all know, especially in this day and age, is that grants can be tenuous, and we certainly don't want to say, come use our service, we'll be here until the grants dry up. So we developed this sustainability model where now operations are funded by our subscribers. So those that subscribe to Globus pay for those premium features. They fund the ongoing operations of Globus. And this is just a small collection of our subscribers. Most of the R1 institutions subscribe to Globus. You can see we've got institutions all over the world. And also some more independent research institutes as well that subscribe. And of course, most of the national laboratories subscribe as well. So a wide range of subscribers keeping things, keeping the lights on at Globus. So I can show you all sorts of neat stats about Globus in this slide, but the kind of the one I like to show is to date, and this I copied this yesterday. So this is to date, we've transferred almost 3.5 exabytes of data. So certainly the experience of transferring data. Okay, second slide, I'll read verbatim, then I promise no more. Globus is the data management platform that delivers fast and reliable data transfer. Talk a little bit about what that means and how to implement it. Collaboration, Globus sharing and guest collections. I'll go into that as well. Automation services, I'm just going to touch on that. A lot of the upcoming sessions that we're going to do with Globus talk a little bit about our automation services. Directly from your own storage systems. We are not a storage provider. It's a bring your own storage model. Via software as a service, we've got a really nice web interface, lots of different ways to interact with Globus. We've even got a nice command line interface, all using your existing identities. Again, we're not an identity provider, don't want to be. We want you to be able to use your existing identities that you currently have. Okay, so your own storage can mean different things. Is it your HPC cluster? Is it your storage on your laptop? Is it your desktop workstation? Is it storage on an instrument? Is it storage up in the cloud? It can mean lots of different things. And as Globus, we have a large range of connectors that support these diverse systems. So what we do is we abstract the storage to make it look like one thing, a Globus collection. And you'll see that as I go in and do some demos here. And we've got connectors for just about every type of cloud storage out there. Our AWS S3 connector, as long as, you'll hear people have created S3 compatible storage or have an S3 interface, as long as it's been written to the AWS spec, our S3 connector will work just fine. So just about, you can connect it just about any type of storage system out there with Globus. Okay, a couple things I'm going to kind of set the stage here as logging into Globus, and you're going to see me do this identity. Again, we're not an identity provider. There's lots of different ways to authenticate to Globus. We've got ORCIDs, Google IDs, GitHub identities, the federated identity provider list, and you'll see this as we go in there. You don't need to contact Globus to get an account. You don't need to contact support. You can go right in, and as long as you log in with one of your identities, you're going to effectively have a Globus account. In the authentication system, and you'll see this when I go in, you can actually link your identities. This is really handy. If you wear lots of different hats, or let's say you've got an Access ID, your institutional identity, maybe your Google identity, you want to link them all together. So when you come into Globus, you can be one unified account. You could certainly do that. The other thing just about identities is identities and email addresses are not the same thing. They look the same. The strings, they may even be by identical strings, but they are not really the same thing. And I'm going to show you how to find your identity after your login, which can be important as we dive in and go on. Okay, so Globus web app and file transfer made simple. Let's go ahead and actually do a demo of the Globus file transfer. You can actually log in and do this very demo I'm going to use, because I'm going to use some collections that we have out there that anybody has access to. So this is the Globus webpage, globus.org. It's a great place to start to log into Globus, and I'm going to go ahead and click log in. And here's all I mentioned. Here's all those federated identities that we have. Just about, most of the universities in the US, the major universities are federated within Common and CI login. Those are all listed here. If you don't have that, you can log in with your Google identity. You could log in with your Google identity, your GitHub identity, or even your ORCID to log into Globus. And we even have our own lightweight identity provider should all else fail. So you can actually go and get a Globus ID to log in as well. But I don't recommend that because most of the identities are already out there. So I am at the University of Chicago, so I'm going to use my University of Chicago identity to authenticate. And I click continue, and you're going to notice it's going to take me out to the U Chicago identity provider. So let me go to my password manager here and grab my username and my password. And then I'm going to verify, and you notice here that we respect multi-factor authentication. So it's going to go out to my MFA. Now I've logged in recently, so it may not ask me. Nope, there it goes. And here we go. Lucky I have my phone with me here. And I authenticate here. Yes, this is my device. There we go. So I've used my University of Chicago identity to authenticate to Globus Auth and log in to Globus. So here I am. And this is the first kind of the web app, the web interface that you can use to interact with the various Globus services. This is the single pane view. I prefer the dual pane view because I know transfers happen between two collections. But I'm going to click here on settings first to show you where your identities are. So here's all your identities. So these are all the identities that I've got linked together. You can see there's my ORCID identity. This is the identity I logged in with. There's my Access identity. This is actually a Google identity. I'm dual appointed at Argonne National Laboratory. This is my ALCF identity. So I've got everything kind of linked in here. So very handy way to kind of aggregate your identities. But when you're looking up an identity, this is where to look it up in Globus. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do a transfer. There are two collections we have out there that anybody has access to: Globus Tutorial Collection 1 and Globus Tutorial Collection 2. And in Globus Tutorial Collection 1, in the Share Go Data directory, there are 3 small text files. So I'm just going to highlight 2 of these. So the file 1 and file 3. I'm going to hit start there, and the transfer is going to start. So the transfer is going to go between Globus Tutorial Collection 1 to Globus Tutorial Collection 2. You can see there's a transfer request submitted. I can jump in and view details of that. Obviously, small files, so they're going to transfer very quickly. I can look at this event log, see that the transfer started, progressed, and succeeded. I can look if there were any fault events in there. One of the great things about Globus is we're very fault tolerant. So if the network goes away, we just back off, and we'll pick things right back up when the network comes back. This is fire and forget. So if this transfer was going to take days, weeks, or months, if it was a huge set of files, you could log out and log back in and look at your activity monitor to see where that transfer is in its transfer process. But very small, easy transfer. Let's go back here to Globus Tutorial Collection 2. Oh, sorry. And if I refresh this, you can see that file 1 and 3 did indeed transfer. So there we go. So very easy way to transfer files between 2 collections. And we'll jump in and talk a little bit about some of the options on transfers as we jump further into the demo. Okay, so what did we see here? We saw file and forget file transfer and synchronization, right? So I came in, I authenticated with the Globus services through the Globus web app. You could view the optional notifications of that transfer where I could monitor and see where it was. But what happened is when I interact with that service, it speaks to the instances of Globus Connect, and I'll talk a little bit about what those means. Those are the things that instantiate the collections. You install Globus Connect on your file systems to create Globus collections and turn your file systems into those Globus collections. And then the transfers happen directly between the 2 collections. So the data does not transit our service at all. We do not see your files. We do not see the contents of those files. The files go directly between the 2 collections. Now that's also handy in the sense that, like a lot of file sharing, cloud-based file sharing or transfer, you transfer it up to the cloud, then transfer it back down. If you have very large files, that can be very expensive in both time and money. This way, the transfer is happening directly between the two endpoints, 2 collections. There are automated resolutions of the transient error. I talked about that. If Globus, we handle those any disruptions in the connection very well. There's certainly an option to encrypt that transfer as well. It uses a very fast protocol, which I'll talk about in a minute. There are actually browser-based downloads. I call this a transfer because you're transferring between two collections. But it's a subscription feature. You can enable your endpoints for browser-based downloads. So if somebody says, I can't or won't install an instance of Globus Connect, but I still want to use Globus to retrieve those files, we have an option for that as well. And again, support for just about every type of file system out there. Okay, talking a little bit about endpoint collections and Globus Connect. So Globus Connect is a piece of software. It's installed to instantiate an endpoint. I'll talk about the versions of that in a second. The endpoints are what host the collections. The collections are basically just a storage abstraction. So I'll show you, like when I go to my institutional storage, you'll see kind of my home directory structure there. But that's what the users interact with. The users generally don't interact with the endpoints. The endpoints are set up by the administrators. The users interact with the collections themselves. Two types of collections: mapped collections. Those are accessed by a user that has a local account. So we'll see when we go to my institutional storage, I'm mapped to my local account. I see my local file system. Then there's guest collections. Guest collections are built on top of mapped collections, and it adds the ability for your mapped collection user to share data to other Globus users. They don't have to have that mapped account. They don't have to have an account on that system. Now, that is a subscription feature. Anybody can set up Globus Connect, even Globus Connect server with mapped collections. You need a subscribed endpoint in order to subscribe under a subscription, obviously, to create guest collections. So that is one of the subscription features. Two flavors of Globus Connect. Globus Connect server, multi-user Linux system. This is your HPC center, right? And it's generally set up by an administrator. The users don't need to set that up. So when they go to that collection, they see their home directory structure automatically. When I first started at the University of Chicago, Midway is our research computing cluster. And I was thinking, I wonder if they actually have Globus at the University of Chicago. I went to the collection, typed in Midway. Sure enough, it popped right up, and there's my home directory structure after I logged in. So very cool. I didn't have to install anything. Then there's Globus Connect Personal. Globus Connect Personal installs on your local workstations, your laptop, turns your personal workstation into a Globus collection, a Globus endpoint and collection, because there's just a single user associated with that. And I'm actually going to do an installation of Globus Connect Personal to show you how it's done, and we can do a transfer to and from our personal workstations. Okay, just like I promised, installing Globus Connect Personal. Let's go ahead and install Globus Connect Personal and do a transfer from another collection to our personal workstation. So let's see. If you go to the file manager here, if you go to collections, you can see Get Globus Connect Personal. That will download Globus Connect Personal for whatever flavor of operating system you have, Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. I obviously have it on my machine because I use it all the time. I just went and deleted my Globus Connect Personal collection. So we're going to actually fire that up and do an installation again. Okay, so I double-clicked on the Globus Connect Personal application. I'm going to click Login. What that's going to do is that's going to take me to an authentication page. And this says Globus Connect Personal wants to use your identities. I've already logged in, so it knows who I am in the web app, but it wants to use your identities to do these things, effectively install Globus Connect Personal. I'm going to go ahead and click Allow, and there we go. Okay, so now I'm authenticated to Globus, so it knows who I am. And I'm going to install Globus. You can pick whatever identity. I'll install my UChicago identity. I'm going to give it a collection name. Let's call it Greg's MacBook, because that's where I'm going to install it. So my collection name is going to be Greg's MacBook. I can give it a description if I want. Not so important here because Greg's MacBook is pretty descriptive. Now, there's this click here for high assurance. If I will talk a little bit about the subscription levels that we have and what a high assurance subscription is. Again, subscription feature. If you are a high assurance subscriber and you are going to subscribe your endpoint, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in your collections, and you want high assurance on your Globus Connect Personal endpoint, you go ahead and click this. If you are not sure, best not to click that, because especially if you're not a subscriber, there's nothing you can do. And when you install it, it's immutable. You can't go in and turn it into a non-high assurance collection. You have to delete that collection, start all over, which, as you can see, is not that big a deal. So don't click that unless you know what you're doing. How about that? Okay, so there we go. So let's call it Greg's MacBook. It's going to go ahead and set it up, and it says setup successful, Greg's MacBook, exit setup. I tell people that if it takes you more than 30 seconds to install Globus Connect Personal, you're probably doing something wrong. Okay, so let's go back to the file manager here. And instead of Globus Tutorial Collection 2, we're going to go to that Greg's MacBook collection. There it is. I'm going to click on that. And you can see that these are all the files on my directory structure on my Mac. Now, I may not want that instance of Globus Connect Personal to see my entire directory structure. So I'm going to tie it down. Now, I've got a Mac, so the little Globus G icon here is in the toolbar. For different operating systems, it's a little bit different, but it's documented very well. So I'm going to click on that and go into Preferences. I am going to, oh, by the way, if you delete your instance of Globus Connect Personal, this is where to do it. Don't go deleting files or things. Do it from here. And it's also a good habit to actually delete the collection as well. Okay, so I'm going to go into Access, and I'm going to tie it down. I've got a specific directory that I like to tie it down to, and I'm going to click the plus, and I've got a directory that I call Globus Endpoint. And that's what I'm going to tie it down to. I'm going to delete that. So now it is only going to look at my Globus endpoint directory. And there we go. Okay, so if I refresh this, it should go to that specific file, the Globus endpoint directory. And sure enough, there it is. And if I go and grab my file manager on my Mac, I can see that this is a coincident there. And if I want to transfer, let's say we're going to transfer file 1 and 2 over to my MacBook, and I click Start, away it goes. Again, it should happen pretty quickly. It's file 1 and file 2 transferred over, and sure enough, I like my directory structure. There it is. So there you go. So there's a really easy way to install Globus Connect Personal and do transfers to and from your laptop. The real use case here is maybe transferring files up to your HPC center, where you're going to do some large scale calculations. So that's the general use case for Globus Connect Personal.
Hey, Greg, there's one question in the chat.
Yes.
It says, can you provide an example of 2 or more mapped collections on the same endpoint?
An example of 2 or more map collections? Well, sure, I could. You can, and you can do that. So if I go to, okay, so let's do this. Let's go to UChicago RCC Midway. And let's go and into, so this is my home directory structure on Midway, which is our research computing cluster. Sorry, I'm moving too fast. My mouth is moving faster than my fingers. Okay, so this is my home directory structure on Midway. If I shelled into Midway, this is what I'd see. But we can do a transfer between 2 on the same endpoint. I could transfer between 2 directories within my home directory structure. So let's go here to UChicago RCC Midway for collection 2. I've got some slides here. Slide down, let's say slide download. These are actually the slides I'm using today. So I'm going to transfer this from one directory, one mapped collection, over to another mapped collection, which is just my home directory structure. And if I click Start, away it goes, and I should just see that appear right here. There it is. There's my Globus intro slides. So yeah, that's effectively 2 mapped collections on the same endpoint, and you can indeed transfer between 2 mapped collections. Did that answer the question? Okay, if it didn't, we could do more demos on that later. Okay, so quick review of what's been happening here. Globus Connect, install it on your file system to create a Globus collection. Globus Connect 2 flavors, Globus Connect Server, multi-user Linux systems, Globus Connect Personal, your laptop personal workstations. Data is going directly between the two instances of Globus Connect, doesn't go through our services. When we log in, we're interacting with the Globus services through the web app. We also have a command line interface that I won't talk about today, but you can use that to interact with the Globus services as well, and use that to actually initiate the transfers. Again, fire and forget. Once you interact with the services and start the transfers, you're talking to the transfers through this, just talking to the instances of Globus Connect as a control channel. The transfers fire off, and you can log out and log back in. It's fully managed by the Globus services. You don't have to babysit that transfer. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the two protocols that we use to transfer data. Globus Transfer, that's what you see when I hit that start button. That uses grid FTP, very fast and reliable protocol. This gives you that the reliability, the fire and forget. It gives you the network stability. When the network glitches, we can drop off and drop back in, and things kind of pick right up where things started. It's really, I like to call it, it's a remote control for your data, right? The Globus services do everything. We also have the ability to do HTTPS downloads. And if you look here, if we go back to Globus Tutorial Collection 1 is set up, again, subscription feature. You need to subscribe in order to set up your collections with HTTPS access. But let's say I was a person that could not install Globus Connect, yet I wanted to download this file. I couldn't transfer it because I don't have an endpoint. I can't transfer it to another collection. You can see this download button here. I can click it and it will download directly to my laptop after I log in and authenticate, of course. So Globus authentication is still there, but you don't have to. See, it's giving me a place to save it. I'm going to save it to my downloads directory. There we go. So yeah, so a way to easily download files. Now, the thing is, if you have very large transfers, if you've got a terabyte file, HTTPS is likely to bring you great sadness. It's just not going to work like grid FTP and Globus transfers are going to work, but it's there. Okay, again, grid FTP is reliable, secure, and fast. This is one of our test transfers that we're doing. And you can see from the research data archive at NCAR to the ALCF at Argonne, you can get some pretty impressive speeds in an optimized network. So very fast, reliable protocol, roughly 20 times SCP performance in an optimized network. Okay, I'm going to do one more kind of common use case in the Globus web app. And this is another example of a transfer between two different map collections, not map collections on the same endpoint. Let's go ahead and go back to Chicago RCC Midway. And let's also go to Access. So Access, kind of it's your federated it's a, what do I want to say? It's a NSF sponsored program that gives you access to lots of computing resources and storage resources. And this is a instance at a machine at Purdue that, given by my nature of having an access allocation, I've got storage allocations there too. So this is a machine at Purdue, and this is a 10 gig file sitting on there. And talking between national infrastructure and maybe your home HPC is a pretty common use case. And if I want to transfer that up to my HPC center, up to Midway, I can do that. Click that 10 gig and click Start. Oh, sorry, I wanted to show some. Actually, I'm going to go in and cancel that for a second. Let's go ahead and go to the activity monitor. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that transfer, terminate that task. That's how to terminate a task. Give you a demo there. And let's go back to the file manager. There's lots of different options when you're going to transfer. You're going to see that under transfer and timer options. You can label the transfer. Let's call this Greg's 10G Xfer, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. But you can do things like if you're transferring entire directories, you can sync only files where the modification time is new or file size is different, checksum is different. This is those replication and backup tasks, right? You could delete files on the destination that don't exist on the source. Again, replication, backup, preserve the source file modification time. Who cares about when the transfer was started or when the file was transferred? I want to know when it was last touched. You can do that here. We have checksumming. So that's another thing with grid FTP, the reliability. We do checksumming. So what you see is what you get. And if checksum doesn't match, we're going to send that transfer all over. But you can actually turn checksumming off if you want your transfer to happen a little quicker. You can encrypt the transfer. Now, there are endpoints where this is, you can force encryption on certain endpoints. So that would be checked and grayed out. You couldn't turn that off. You can skip files on sources with errors. So again, with the reliability, we're going to keep trying, right? Even if there's an error, we're going to keep trying to send that file. And you may want to skip files on errors and bail out, especially if you're transferring a lot of files. You can fail on quota errors, right? If your disk is full, we're going to keep trying until somebody gives you more space on that disk. If you click this, we're going to fail out on those quota errors and complete the rest of the transfer.
Hey, Greg,
You can
Greg,
apply.
there's a couple of questions. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
There's a couple of questions. Carl asked if Grid FTP can be configured or customized to use multiple or more transfer channels per file. And Feng Zhang asked if bandwidth can be set.
Yeah, so those are good questions. So yes, Globus Connect, I'm sorry, Grid FTP by nature uses multiple streams, okay, multiple TCP streams, parallelism, and multiple files and flights, concurrency. If you are a subscriber, another subscription feature, you can set those values. You can set the parallelism concurrency. Now, obviously, you have to match the two endpoints. You can't break the laws of network physics. But you can adjust those to perhaps increase the speed of your transfer or to maybe back off and not take so much bandwidth. Bandwidth per se is not settable. You can't say Globus can only access or allocate this much bandwidth. However, you could certainly do that in your network settings, right? Your routers. You could say, well, Globus, these ports only have access to this much bandwidth, so you can control it there. But it is an effective way to control your transfer speeds and bandwidth allocations.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I think we covered that. You can, let's go back to the transfers. You can apply filter rules. So it's regex type mapping, right? Transfer.txt files. So lots of different options here in transfers. Now, when a transfer completes, you'll get a notification. You'll get an email notification. You can turn those off, right? You can, if you don't want any notifications, or maybe you just want failure notifications, you can set your notifications, your email notifications. The last thing I'll show you, and this is pretty cool, you can schedule transfers in the future, or you can schedule repeated transfers. So we call this Globus timers. It's a Globus service, right? You don't have to monitor it. Once you set it up, the Globus services are going to take care of all this and do those transfers for you. It's really cool. You know, when we talk about automation, I'll tell you one of the most common automation tasks that somebody wants to do is just a repeatable transfer, and that's built right into Globus. You can do that very easily. Okay, so let's go ahead and click that start, and away that transfer should go with that labeled transfer. Again, with a big file, I want to log out and log back in. I can just jump back to the activity manager. And then you can see this is the transfer is labeled here. So if I have a bunch of different transfers, I can label them so I know what to come to and do a little bit of monitoring here. I can click on that, look at the event log. Again, it started. This will take a little bit of time because it's a 10 gig transfer, but it'll transfer from Anvil at Purdue up to the University of Chicago, the research computing cluster there. Okay, so And again, an example of a map file to map file transfer. This can be done without a subscription. These can be set up for without a subscription, and you can execute those transfers with no subscription. Okay, yeah, so there we go. I think I've showed you everything with map file transfers. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about guest collections and sharing. So research, obviously, as we all know, inherently collaborative. How do you share, distribute, and allow others to have access to files and your collaborators quickly, easily, and without having to do a lot of work on the administrative side? So enter Globus guest collections. Easy data sharing, no special treatment required. You don't need to have to set up an SFTP server. Now, your administrators do have a lot of controls they can pull. They can set up who has access to the ability to create guest collections, what domains have access to those guest collections. There's a lot of different restrictions they can put on those, where those guest collections can see in the file system. So it's not just the Wild West. They can put a lot of restrictions on those guest collections. Now on Midway, which is our research computing cluster for non-protected data, it is pretty open, and I like that. I can set up any of my map collections, any of my directory structured as guest collections, and share out with any of my collaborators. You can share with collaborators at any institution or company. You can, and you want to share it with an identity. If that person doesn't have an identity, you can share it with an email address, and then they can link that all in. So lots of different ways to share, and I'll do a demo of sharing in a minute. You can share. You're sharing from your current storage, right? You don't have to stage it. I mentioned before, where a lot of the cloud-based sharing, you got to push it up, and then they got to pull it down, and that can be very restrictive and expensive with the types of files and the file sizes we generally deal with. So again, the storage system administrators can do a lot of enforcement on who can share, how they can share, just this fine-grained access control that they can put on it. So what happens here is if I've set up a file to share and created a guest collection, my collaborator is going to log into the Globus service, just like I did, and they're going to see that they have a guest collection available to them. They're going to be able to go to that guest collection, and then they can transfer that file and move it to any collection of their choice, whether that's their Globus Connect Personal collection, or perhaps I've set it up for downloads, depending on the way the system administrator has set up the endpoint as well. So lots of different ways to do those transfers, as we see. So let's go ahead and do a demo of Globus sharing and how easy it is to set up. So again, oh yeah, so it looks like that transfer is completed. Let's just take a quick look. Yeah, sure, there's a 10 gig file. Take a look at the activity monitor. I can jump in there and get a little bit more information on that. I can look at the event log. There are no fault events or file skipped errors. So everything transferred just fine. I can view the overview. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good effective speed. Yeah, from Purdue up to Midway. Okay, yeah, so let's go back to my file manager here. I have a directory where I keep the slides. In fact, I've got the slides from today here. Yeah, so set up here. So let's go back in my Globus slide directory. I want to create a Globus slides. I'm going to create a share, create a Globus guest collection. And let's go ahead and do that. And let's call this, Midway's pretty busy today, lots of people working. I'm going to add a guest collection, and let's call this Greg's slide share. I'm going to give it a name. Let's see, Greg's slide share. And I can give it a description and keywords. This just helps if people are searching for that. Search it certainly for the display name, but if you want to give it a description or any keywords, it gives other people ability to discover that collection. People that have access, of course. You can actually set it up to enforce encryption if your collection or your map collections aren't set up for encryption, but you want to make sure your guest collections are. You can do that as the person setting that up. So let's go ahead and create that guest collection. So Greg's slide share is created, and it's going to dump me out here to that Globus guest collection interface. And I'm only halfway there because I've created the slide share, but I've got to actually share it out with somebody. So I'm going to add permissions and I'm going to share. Now I could share it with an individual. I could look for an identity. So I've got here's my alter ego, Naraki Personal. There we go. So I could share it with that identity and share it with an individual. I could give them a message, send it, and they'll get an email saying, hey, somebody shared files with you. Here's the link. Go here. You can transfer the data. But I'm actually going to share with a group here. And I'm going to select a group. I've actually gone ahead, share with a group. I set up a group for today, this New Jersey Ed SlideShare group. And you can go and join that group, and then you will have access to my collection based on your membership in the group. I'll show you Globus groups in a second and how to configure all that. But I don't want you to have access to that entire root SlideShare directory. So I am going to browse here and slide downloads. Let's see, New Jersey Edge, there we go. So I'm going to set that as the directory that the New Jersey Edge tutorials, the share group, this New Jersey Edge SlideShare group will have access to, just a single directory. I'm only going to give you a read permission. I could give write permission if I wanted somebody to push files up to me, but that's not the case here. And I'm going to go ahead and add that permission. Done. Okay. So there we go. So got that all set up. Here it is. This group is set up to have write access to the slide download New Jersey Edge directory. And you can kind of see the use case here, right? You could create a single guest collection, but with multiple users, give them access to various directories. So you don't need a guest collection per user. You can have a guest, you can have a share that out by directory. If I wanted to delete access, I just go here and click that trash can and there'd be no more access. But I'll show you the groups here and this New Jersey Edge SlideShare group. You can go and discover this group, request access. Oh, look at that. Somebody already has asked for membership. And here we go. I'm going to give Carl here access to my group. Say approve request. Okay, so now Carl has access to my group. And he can actually now access that guest collection on UChicago, RCC Midway. He's at Tulane, so I'm assuming he doesn't have a local account on Midway, and he's going to be able to access that file and transfer it to his collection of his choice. Now, a couple of other things here. Let's say I wanted to, let's jump in and take a look at Carl here. I can give him the ability to be, I can give him an elevated role on my group. So let's say I was going on vacation and I wanted somebody else to be able to be an administrator of that group. I could set him as an administrator so he could invite others to that group. Could give him an access manager role. So I can give him various roles on that group so he could actually control the group. Same is true with collections. You can grant others roles on your own collections. And you know, the example is if you're a PI, you might create a guest collection. And let's say you want your graduate students to be able to manage that collection or allow access to others. You can give them a role on that collection so they can do that. So again, Globus has lots of this fine-grained access control and this ability to grant access and grant others roles on collections in order to be very effective with your research. Let's just see if there's any others. Nope. Okay, so there we go. So Carl, go ahead and grab those slides and move them to a collection of your choice. Okay, we've seen map collections, we've seen transfers, we've seen see, what else have we seen? We've seen guest collections, talked a little bit about Globus groups. Yeah, so that gives you a pretty good overview of Globus. I'm going to talk, I think that's my last demo. I'm going to talk a little bit about our other subscription levels, and then hopefully I'll leave a couple minutes for additional questions. Okay, so Globus subscriptions, by having a role in a subscription management group, you can do other things. You can subscribe your own resources, and that's effectively subscribing your own collections, your own endpoints. So you can do things like initiate guest collections and file sharing. You can add any premium connectors, provided your subscription has those as well. You can view a little bit about what's going on in your endpoints and collections with the Globus console. I'll show you that really quick. If we click on, where's the console? Click on the console here. You can get a little bit of a kind of a high level view on collections and endpoints that you have the ability to monitor and manage. Gives you a nice high level view. That's a subscription feature, obviously. There are usage reports. I talked a little bit about HTTPS access. It gives you a little bit access to our data automation services. And I'll talk a little bit about our subscription levels as well in a minute. But how do you find out if your institution is a Globus subscriber, and how do you join your subscription? If you log into the Globus web app here, you click on settings and you click on subscriptions. So for instance, let's say Carl was interested, he'd type in Tulane, and sure enough, Tulane University has a Globus subscription, even at the BAA level. And you'll see that they have the box connector as well associated with the subscription. And he could request the ability, so he could, there's sometimes for some reason, Tulane has shut it off, but there'll be the ability to join that subscription group. There's a button here. Otherwise, if you contact us, we'll help you out and get you in contact with the right resources. So you could be a member of this subscription group and manage your own resources. Okay, talking a little bit about our various subscription levels. Let's first start with the Globus core security features that we've already touched on. Access control, the identities are provided and managed by the institution. Again, we're not an identity provider. So now if you're at an institution and you leave that and they remove your identity, you no longer have access to Globus resources that you've been granted access to by those identities. So as an institution, you can control who has access to those specific resources. Again, data remains at the institution. It's not stored by Globus. When you're transferring data, it doesn't flow through us. We don't see it. There's the integrity checks. I talked a little bit about the checksum that we do. So what you see is what you get. High availability and redundancy. We're in multiple exclusion zones in AWS, so a very reliable service. And I talked a little bit about anything that we store locally, any information, user account information. We don't see your data, but we do see file and path names. All that data is stored encrypted in our cloud. So so again, Globus, just as a root service, very secure. Two subscriptions levels that we have, the high assurance and the HIPAA BAA level. And that really just gives you those NIST 800, 171, NIST 953 level of controls. And I'll talk about what some of those features are. So for high assurance, that means the authentication assurance. If you go to a collection, you saw how with Anvil, it let me right in because I had my I had my Access identity linked in. With a high assurance collection, it says, I don't care who Globus thinks you are, you need to authenticate to me with this specific identity. There's the re-authentication timeouts. If you move to a different browser session or a different tab on the browser, it will ask for re-authentication. And also with a high assurance collection, it enforces encryption. Even as an administrator, you can't turn that off. And then there's some additional audit logging that it does at the endpoint. So that's an additional subscription level. In addition to our standard subscription, we've got a high assurance subscription. And then we have a BAA level subscription on top of that, which is the BAA, which is mechanically and feature functionality wise exactly the same as a high assurance subscription. It just has that little piece of paper if you're transmitting PHI, a business associates agreement. So really with Globus, it's not a trade-off you need to make, right? Access, sharing, collaboration gives you a very secure way to do those things so you can comply. right? The privacy is there, the security, you can comply with the various standards that you need to comply with. Okay, last slide I'll leave you with, Globus documentation, docs.globus.org. It's always the best place to start. We got a ton of docs out there. We've got our own YouTube channel. This video that I'm doing right now, you're going to see it up there. I've done similar videos to this that are already up there. There's lots of good content up there. Support at globus.org. They're going to help you out. So if you get stuck, certainly talk to support at globus.org. They're going to get you steered in the right direction. There's mailing lists out there. So if you want to kind of communicate with other Globus users and their experience with Globus, you can ask in our mailing list. Our customer engagement team. I do these things all the time. Happy to do it for various institutions and your researchers there. So, we love to do outreach and get more people using Globus. And we also have a professional services team. So if there's any sort of work that you want to do with Globus internally, we have a professional services team that you can engage. Okay, so that's all I have. I'm going to jump to, I thought there were.
There's another question,
Okay.
Carl. Uh, does Globus control domain itself is
Yes.
the Globus control domain itself is operating redundantly on multiple AWS zones?
So there are multiple exclusion zones in the AWS East region. We're looking at failover to the West region as well. Yeah, so it's.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Greg.
But
This was really comprehensive. And I put in the chat links to where the recording of the session will be available, as well as a link to the upcoming webinars that are in October. And I'll just share real quick the other webinars that are coming up. Oops, I'm sharing the wrong thing. Okay. October 7th, we have Roshana presenting on instrument data management and automation. October 14th, Voss will be presenting on Globus Compute Federated Function as a Service for Research Cyber Infrastructure. And October 23rd, Lev will be presenting on Globus Connect server installation and configuration. And while, focus will be on our Campus CPCC STAR participants, others are welcome to join for that October 23rd webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. And if there aren't any more questions, we want to thank Greg Naraki and Susan Tussey from Globus. And we look forward to seeing you on October 7th.